Yeah, so that takes me back to 2012. At the store that I worked at the time, they had these, and I made a video about that. Ancient times by internet standards. And yeah, I talked about those, and
You worked at a knife shop? I didn't know that.
One of the ways in which you would use it, and Riddick does that, is these kind of slicing attacks, right? So just using the edge that way. There's one particular problem I have with that is if you hold one of these. So if you pretend you slash at me, if I catch it early enough, I can kind of catch it here, right? So because there's nothing there, there's no point there. Like I might get cut or something, but there's a way to kind of catch these here that you wouldn't be able to if this was a knife. So let's say it was a regular knife and someone slashes at you, most of the time it would be thrusts, but if someone slashes, you can't just do that, right? Whereas here you could. Would be painful with these, no doubt about it. It wouldn't be fun times, but it's possible. And even if not that, you can kind of catch the hand here. You know, if you're early enough, this would hurt. Like getting these on the palm, that would suck. But if I can catch it here, I'm fine. Whereas if the point was forward, I would never do that. So that's a bit of a downside of that kind of attack.
This is one of those cases where overthinking causes tunnel vision. I mean, everything I said there could be applied to fighting with a knife or dagger in ice pick grip, which was done, of course. Except that grip with a regular knife or dagger would actually make it easier for the opponent. The serrations on top of Riddick's knives may not be as effective as the point of the blade, but still better than the end of a handle, right? I made some more points about this kind of overthinking later.
You've got the downward stab. It's a bit of a waste of blade because that's as far as it goes, right? Whereas, you know, if you had the hand here, you'll have more to work with, but it protects the hand to an extent. That's what I pointed out back then. And now I'm kind of like, how relevant is that? Not that much. Because here's the deal. If you're fighting with knives, this is a completely different story. If both have a knife, it's hideous. It's rough. You know, knife fighting is extremely, extremely hazardous. Like no matter what style you practice, no matter how much you've practiced, whatever you do, if there's knives involved, it's way worse than with a sword, funnily enough. You start at a greater distance, you have much more to work with, you know, like you have this entire blade to defend yourself with. All that goes out the window. So this is all like grappling and shanking each other. It's generally better if both have a knife because then they're a little bit more reluctant to move in. If one person has a knife and the other doesn't, they'll just run in and shank. So in this case, are you gonna parry like this?
I remember seeing a promotional poster of Vin Diesel holding these, and he's standing something like in this position where he's concealing them. So maybe if you conceal them, I can see the strength from that.
I could see that, yeah. It's more of an assassination tool than a weapon. He uses it in both kinds of ways.
I also think that somewhere in either Pitch Black or in Chronicles of Riddick, he uses them this way, like digging into someone's back that way. Yeah. I think it was a great point when you were covering that it's a waste of blade because it can only go this far, though.
I feel like you would be better off if they were curved a little bit more forward. You know, just kind of take the thing and just bend it a little bit forward so that you can kind of pop thrusts like this. And have a little bit more to work with. You still get some of that protection, and you can still, you know, thrust downward to an extent. But it's just there are a little bit more angles that are open because this way it's mainly this and like that, not so much side. So like that side and downward. This kind of works. They're still more awkward. They're not terrible by any means, but I think I would prefer a regular knife.
Yeah, I think that this area that you're pointing out, it's interesting because this is more of like almost like a brass knuckle. So this is more ridged as if it should be like a knuckle. Definitely more exotic in design. It's
a cool design. I've always liked these. I mean, you know, back then when I first watched the Riddick movies, like those and these things, yeah. What I like about this is that they go in a very different direction. Literally too, I guess. But it's just a design that you don't see otherwise. I can't think of anything that looks quite like this.
No, yeah, I don't. Even if you used it the other way, This is obviously wrong way to hold it, but if you're to use it the other way, have you seen anything looking like this?
Not really, not quite like that.
Thinking off the top of my head, historically, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this.
Normally the blade would come out here, and then maybe you have another, like a hand guard, or maybe it could be sharpened too, but normally it wouldn't be quite like that. The interesting thing is it's kind of like, it's like a praying mantis, right? You've got this sort of design, and I think that also adds to it. Like when I look at these, I have no idea what they had in mind when they designed that, but I'm kind of thinking catching a blade there. Because like, yeah, it could be used offensively, but I feel like there's not really enough to work with. So I'm wondering if that's the idea. My concern with that would be if you mess it up, your hand is right there. If you catch it here, good, but if the angle is just a little bit off, it might go into your knuckles instead. A knuckle guard is not actually as protective as you might think. I've had it a bunch of times in sparring that I felt safe because the knuckle guard was there, but then I got hit here. And like on the back of the hand or on the inside of the hand. So, but it's not like he fences.
Yeah.
He does sometimes fight enemies with longer weapons, which is a problem, but he's also very fast.
I love how you brought up the point earlier about knife fighting being more dangerous than sword fighting. I've now cycled through various martial arts that I've trained in. In Krav Maga, one of the first principles they teach you is that the safest place is being where the opponent is. So they teach you to like dart towards the opponent. Anywhere else, if you don't have enough time to scan your entire surroundings, it could be more dangerous. There could be multiple opponents hiding. You don't know what's actually going on. So swords have great range, but then within a certain range, if you can close that gap, swords become, compared to knives, becomes pretty like ineffective.
Something worth pointing out in general is how you can overthink a design and be overly critical. So, for example, one thing that came to my mind is the fact that as you're holding it, there's always the point in you're pointing the tip at yourself, right? So if someone were able to just push on it, they could make you impale yourself, right? But that happens with a dagger too. When you hold a dagger like this, same thing. And yes, this can absolutely happen. It can end up there. So would you discard fighting with a dagger and an ice pick grip because of that? No, you wouldn't, of course. That's what they did historically. We know that. So you can absolutely sometimes overthink and just be like, yeah, well, what if this though? Yeah, what if? What if you cut your own leg with a sword? It can happen, you know. If you get into this mindset of picking a design apart and trying to find everything that's not quite 100% functional, if you did this out of context, if you didn't know how fighting works and you just thought about that, you could end up in situations where you argue, oh, double-edged is bad because one edge is always pointing at yourself. It's like, yeah, okay, but so what?
That's a great point, because if there was such a thing as a most perfect weapon, we wouldn't have so much variety that exists, right? So a double-edged sword, you just need to change your fighting technique compared to like a single-edged blade, like a saber. That's what we see all the time in like YouTube comments being like, oh, this sucks, or this is, you know, I see that all the time, but it's like, it just means that you just need to change your fighting style. That's it. So I love that.
The same with talking about how this or that doesn't work. Like you try it out and it just fails miserably. And sometimes you just don't know how to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is.
You probably get a million comments like that too.